Okay, here we are. Welcome to today's YouTube Live, everyone. Monday, December 16th. Thank you for your patience. For those of you who are waiting around for the past 18 minutes for me to get on here, I realized I had to go and get a coffee, and there was a line that took a little while. And you know when you get a coffee, and it's just like, you wait there for so long, and it's just super shitty. It's a really, really like watered down almond milk latte. And you're like, that was not worth it. I should have just had drip coffee at home. How's everyone doing, you guys, who's tuning in here live? Thank you for tuning in just to let everyone know what is to be the second to last YouTube Live of 2024. So we're going to be going, Ula. Thank you for being here, Ula. Coming in from Warsaw, Poland, baby. Coming in from the Cold War, baby. Yeah, so this is the second to last YouTube Live. We're going to be going live on Friday one last time, and then we are going to be picking it back up on Monday, January 6th. And I don't know what the structure. I think I'm going to continue with the structure for lives in the new year, but just let everyone know. Friday, December 20th at this usual time is going to be the last YouTube Live of 2024. So maybe on Friday we'll do some sort of recap and stepping into the year ahead and just sort of, closing up some of what energetically, psychically 2024 was all about, right? Because there are a lot of things that were going down. So if you guys are here, let me know in the, we got Ula coming in from Warsaw, Poland. I know that because I know Ula, but if you guys are watching this live, we'd love to hear who's tuning in, where you're tuning in from. I appreciate your presence. Grateful for you guys who tune in here, even if you guys are watching the replays, your ears, eyes, souls, and bodies tuning into these frequency vibrations and these downloads is so much appreciated. That's why I'm trying to do this. Another way to engage with you guys, kind of get some of this word out. Some things are going to be changing next year. Eventually, when I get my podcast rolling, which I don't know the exact date of that, so I'm not going to say anything. But when that does get rolling, that will definitely shift how I do these lives, whether I just do them really infrequently or I don't do them at all and focus on the podcast. That is yet to remain. So anyways, guys, as we're kind of coming in, so Monday, December 16th, a couple more weeks left, 2024. Today's topic is about stepping into your soul's highest timeline. So even just curious, anyone who's tuning in, if you guys hear the word, your soul's highest timeline, I'm curious, what do you guys think? When you hear stepping into your soul's highest timeline, what sort of comes into your space when you think about what that means, what that might entail, what that might look like? What does that really sort of feel like in your space? Stepping into your soul's highest timeline. Rich bitch stuff is what Ula said. Oh, yeah. And when we say rich bitch stuff, we're not even talking just about money, even though we are, but we're talking about abundance, baby. You got abundance just pouring from every single seam and cell of your body. That 100% has to do with the soul's highest timeline. So let's maybe talk about this, okay? So the soul's highest timeline, and the reason why I wanted to talk about this is because a few different reasons. The soul's highest timeline is sort of an interesting thing as we're closing out a year and moving into a new year to sort of think about the lessons in which we have integrated, the sort of contracts that maybe we have completed, to what we are now stepping into in this new year. So it's really good, right? When we're moving into this space, a lot of people maybe have about a couple weeks off. I know not everyone does. But we're sort of thinking about what transpired this year and what are we stepping into. So it's a very timely thing for this time of year. I also want to talk about this topic because I feel it was really relevant to what happened with this portal we went through this fall. Let's say September, October, November. And I've obviously mentioned this time period a lot in lives the past 3-4 months. But say those 3 months. And I feel December has really been a month of beginning to integrate and move into sort of the next chapter, the next timeline, or the next paradigm, right? So now as we're sort of moving towards the mid-December, end of December, this is going to get even louder. And so much of this portal that happened was really about, okay, let's have everything brought up that is not allowing you to move forward into your soul's highest timeline. Let's bring up everything that's not allowing you to move into your soul's highest timeline. And so the portal was really gnarly, right? As so many of us experience this portal that we went through, it brought up our deepest guilt, our deepest shame, our deepest self-loathing, our deepest unworthiness. It brought up our deepest attachment wounds, our deepest sort of karmic patterns relationally with how we relate to others and how we relate to ourselves. It obviously brought up a lot of really, really deep unconscious fear. And so I had a craniosacral therapy session last night. If you guys have never done it, I highly recommend it. I swear, and that's the main thing I do for my process. I get craniosacral therapy done on me by this amazing woman here locally. And we were working through a lot of, like, my body was holding a lot of unconscious fear. And I know it's so related into what I personally am stepping into in the year 2025. So I don't even know how you guys feel, but what I feel right now is and I mean this, and this is not something I say every year. This is literally something that is really being communicated really loudly, that 2025 is going to be the most influential year of my life to date. Doesn't mean it's going to be the most influential year of my life, but it's going to be the most influential year of my life to date. And I keep getting the message that I'm about to elevate in every single facet of my life. And not just like a small elevation, like a very massive elevation in every single facet of my life. And that's coming on really, really strong. And so the fear that was coming up in my body was like, it was like so deep in my body. Like, you guys know when you're moving something through and it feels so fucking deep in your nervous system. It's so deep in your nervous system. And we were kind of moving the energy through in my craniosacral therapy session last night, Sunday. And not a lot of it was able to move. It was kind of parked a little bit. We moved some of it through. A lot of it moved through in the night. Some of it's moved through today. I would say now, sort of Monday afternoon, my body's sort of beginning to integrate it a little bit more. And some of that real stuck unconscious fear in my system is now beginning to move. But it was related with stepping into the soul's highest timeline, because I keep getting this cue. It is time to finally step into the soul's highest timeline. Basically, this place where all of the internal work that I've been doing for the past 4 or 5 years is about to, let's say, externalize, right? So much of this internal shamanic journey and this internal passage I've been on, 2025, it's like, it's time to take off. It's time to go. And Spirit's like communicating to me in the sense of, like, it's go time. It's time, Jamie. It's about to hit. It's about to pop. And so my body feels this. And so I've had kind of these primal glimpses, these energetic sort of windows into what's coming. And it's holy fucking shit. Holy shit. My body contracts a little bit and I feel just some more fear coming up, but the contractions aren't the same as they used to. It's not like I get knocked out. It's kind of like the contraction is I'm able to hold the higher self vision while kind of experiencing that internalized contraction. It might mean that you're exhausted or your stomach bloats out. So the contractions aren't as big, but Spirit just has been communicating to me really, really strong. And so now, as I've sort of told you guys a little bit about what I feel coming into my space, like, what does that mean exactly? And so I really want to try to break down my belief around the soul's highest timeline in as practical and tangible as a way as I can, because I think that's something that I really want to continue to do more, is how do we bring really ethereal, higher dimensional, esoteric topics and really sort of ground them in the earth? How do we bring them as much to the earth as possible so that we can identify with them and relate to them in maybe a new way, or in a way that can actually land and relate to our body, right? Because you guys see on the internet, people are talking about the higher self, these bitches on Instagram and shit are like, their whole business is based around the higher self. And we're kind of like, okay, that's great. But like, what the fuck does this even really mean? What the fuck does it mean, my higher self? Like my best self, my hero self? It sounds very theoretical or idealistic, right? And so, like, what does this actually mean? So that's what we're going to do here in this video. So Robin W says the God timeline, nothing can hide here. Everything is being revealed and integrated. I still have contractions where I lose the thread, but I wake up again fairly quickly. Yeah, so that's a good entry point of this, guys. So we talk about the soul's highest timeline. I actually have that tattooed on my left leg now. I got that on my trip earlier this year. But what it means is that you're so raw, you're so pure. Your energy frequency is so pure and clean in connection to God. It means it's like a straight shot. So, and I've talked about this before, but you know when you feel in someone's field and there's so much rubble and there's so much different holding between them and their sort of connection to God and spirit, and it feels like their body is sort of compartmentalized with all these different sort of units and different parts of themselves, and you're like, everything feels muddy, and everything feels sort of energetically murky, like it's not just a clear shot, right? So when someone really is coming into the soul's highest timeline, their frequency vibration they operate in is going to be so clean, it's going to be so pure, and it's going to be so wildly and deeply authentic. So wildly and deeply authentic to them, meaning this person is able to live and operate in their most authentic energetic space. It means their expression, their vulnerability, their relationship to their little boy or their little girl, what they're walking through in sort of their career, what they yearn for relationally, our capacity to live within integrity with ourselves and what we desire to create in the world. It is such an authentic channel that we're operating in. And so a big way we would talk about the soul's highest timeline is wild divine levels of authenticity. This person is so purely and authentically them. And they are walking in total authentic union with God and source. They're walking with total union and authentic union with God and source. And so when you feel into their energetic space, it feels their channel feels really, really open. They feel really, really pure, and their energy feels really, really clean, right? So basically, whatever is coming through them, you can trust this level of transparency, authenticity, and purity. Like it just doesn't feel this person is being inauthentic. And so a really big thing is authenticity. And again, we could bring this back to you guys, but one thing I'm noticing, I've always been the type of person where I can feel so deeply when someone's being authentic or inauthentic, but I can feel it now at a level that is so fucking striking and evident in my body that I can't deny it. So it's kind of like I can feel into someone's space and be like, they're holding a secret. Or I can feel into someone's space, they're not living totally cleanly to themselves, right? And it doesn't mean that we don't have wounds that we're still working through, but as you feel into their space, it doesn't feel like a cohesive story that's happening. It doesn't feel like a cohesive story that's taking place. And when we say it doesn't feel like a cohesive story, what it means is probably aspects of their past are still really holding in the unconscious, right? So does that make sense, you guys? There's aspects of their unconscious that are still really holding underground. So when someone's energy doesn't feel clean in the vibration of God, what it means is that their unconscious, their nervous system is holding really big pieces. And this is either happening unconsciously or consciously, meaning consciously, they feel it, but they have too much fear. They're not turning towards it. Or there's deeper levels that they have to go to in their sort of purging, awakening, opening, extracting process, more layers of density of energetic wounding that they have to move through to get to like the pure authenticity of their soul's vibration and their soul spirit. So when I feel into someone's space, what I mean is that there's a real big unconscious story that is still living really loudly in their body. Do you guys know that experience when you're around someone and there's a really big unconscious story that is holding, in a way, kind of holding them hostage? They're really restrained. They're really brought back forward, and their energy feels sort of slippery. They feel sort of sneaky. There feels like something you can't quite trust or feel fully safe in their energy. You can't quite even read them. You're like, something's just going on here where what's happening at a conscious level is kind of really in separation to a really, really big story that is happening unconsciously. What this means is that there's just more unwinding that has to happen in this person's nervous system and their channel in, and maybe that's not their path. Maybe that's not what they're meant to go through, but there's more unwinding that has to happen in the energetic, physical, and emotional body and the nervous system for them to unlock these doors of the unconscious so that integration can happen. When I say authenticity of someone's spirit, really, you guys, what I mean is this: unconscious merges with the conscious. And what that really means when you step into your soul's highest timeline, that spirit has really brought you to the deepest depths of stored survival trauma in your nervous system and your unconscious, and is seeking to create this bridge of harmony and alignment between the deepest holdings in your system and the conscious self. This is where our consciousness expands. So our consciousness expands when the deepest threads of the unconscious are revealed. And then your conscious mind is like, oh shit, I see this enough. I understand it. Now the field begins to expand. Do you guys get that? That when something unconscious is revealed to us, now our conscious mind is like, oh shit, I see it now. I get it. I understand it. What Jamie was talking about isn't crazy or foreign. My conscious mind gets it. This is my perception of how we move into spiritual enlightenment. When deeper levels of the unconscious get revealed to the conscious, which creates a bridge. Now what happens is our mind merges into the body. Your body becomes your mind. Think about what happens before you get to this point. There's a real severing and separation between the mind and the body. And a big symptom of this, how this might be revealed, is we really, really start to overthink, right? When we really move into overthinking, what it will tell you guys is that something is trying to merge consciously to unconscious, and the conscious is being overwhelmed or inundated to a point it can't hold. So the rationale of the survivalist brain, of the survival human mind and brain, is to move, to spin, right? It's trying to reason, it's trying to find rationale with a frequency that it can't inhabit yet. So usually when we move into your mind's going crazy, your mind's overthinking, there's a connection that is about to happen between the conscious and the unconscious. There's a bridge. So our field, our energetic field, meaning the reality that we can hold and inhabit in our space, is going to be determined by the depth and breadth of bridge between the conscious mind and the unconscious body. When I say the unconscious body, the best way we can explain it is the conscious mind is an iceberg above the water. The unconscious body is what's holding in the cells, in the tissue, in the fascia, in the nervous system, and it's underneath the water, right? It's underneath the water, right? And so, really, what I'm getting at here is when we move into the soul's highest timeline, there's a real connection. And it doesn't mean we don't still have work to do and blind spots, but there's such a deep breadth and connection between the deepest and purest parts of the unconscious. Basically, what happens in the soul's highest timeline is the iceberg comes fully out of the water. Imagine that image, an iceberg, thinking about how much is live below the water. And that's a really, really good way to actually demonstrate visually, you guys, of what it is. And what's holding underwater is past life trauma and karma, ancestral energy, all of our own stuff, all the different things that have happened through our life that have impacted us. And now in this soul's highest timeline, what happens is the iceberg fully is revealed out of the water. Everything is seen. And so you guys have heard me use this term a lot, probably in the past 3 or 4 months of exposure. And so much of the preparation and readiness for a soul's highest timeline is, are you ready to be exposed? Are you ready to be exposed? And when we say exposure, we can look at, are you ready to have your shadow fully on display? Are you ready to have your quirks, your wounds, your deepest vulnerabilities, your deepest fears? Are you able to have that on display? But also, and almost even more importantly, are you ready to have your full light on display? Are you ready to have the truth of what you're here to do on display? A lot of people, we might even discredit what we're here to do. We might minimize it because we don't want to be pretentious. We don't want to be too much. We don't want people to think we're crazy. We also might be afraid for people to see just how powerful we are. So we discredit why we're here. When we discredit why we're here, what we're also saying is, I'm not going to allow my full vibrational light to come into view. And so it's, are you ready to have your light and your dark fully on display? And so this is why so much of the preparation for the soul's highest timeline is about bringing the iceberg out of water. What happened in this portal, September, October, November, was revealing probably some of the deepest parts of your unconscious, probably a combination of collective, ancestral, past life, and your life. So your trauma, your ancestors' trauma, past life energy, and also collective trauma and karma that you are also holding and taking on and picking up on as the world is moving into its own evolution. So what was coming through in this portal was deep aspects of the iceberg underwater that was trying to be pulled up. So if you can imagine what the portal was, for the 3 months, the portal was the iceberg trying to be revealed. And the iceberg is your full capability, your full capacity, what you're here to do, what you're capable of, the level of authenticity that is capable of being enlivened in your expression, the truth of who you are, that your spirit, your soul, the frequency that you can inhabit is fully on display, fully on display. And so much of moving into the soul's highest timeline, which I feel there's going to be a lot of people, and I feel a lot of people coming to the end of 2024 are kind of being thrusted onto this timeline of the soul's highest timeline. A lot of people are being thrusted onto this timeline moving into 2025. That's why that portal was so gnarly. It was showing everything that has you in fear of exposure. So as I was talking about last night at my craniosacral therapist, my body is working through the deepest layers of unconscious fear. And again, when I work through this unconscious fear, I have no idea what it is. I have no idea what it is. And the reason why I'll say that I have no idea what it is, which I think is probably the most accurate way to describe it, is that it's so deep, I have no idea. It's so deep in the well of my system that I have no idea. There's no memories. It's not like the energy moves and I understand all I know is what it frees up in me. And I can give it like a blanket if I'm moving fear through my body. I can give it a blanket, like a really broad stroke blanket that I'm working through fear. It might be from a past life. It might be something that belonged to one of my ancestors. It might be some womb trauma. It might be something, some attachment trauma. It might be my own stuff, just fear in my system. You don't have to know what it is. And usually when we get hung up trying to figure out what it is often where we get stuck, right? Because we're not able to just have the energy move, right? So all we want to do is be able to create movement, right? And so, but I know that these deepest strands and threads of stored survival trauma in my system, it's trying to get my nervous system to a place where I can hold a certain vibration, right? It's trying to get me to a place where I can hold a certain vibration. So as we talked about, the vibration the body's trying to get to is how much exposure can you hold in your body? So even you guys right now, do you guys notice, for those of you who are watching this, so I can turn it on listeners, do you guys notice a difference in the level of exposure your system can hold? Let's say right now, mid-December, that is different than August before this portal. From August to now December, do you guys notice a real, tangible, massive difference of the level of exposure that you can hold in your system, that has been sort of moving, percolating? you probably went through like a really dense period where things got really, really dark and you were deep underwater. You were buried. You were in a big contraction. A lot of fear probably came up and you probably felt confused what was happening. You probably felt exhausted. But for those of you who are listening, do you notice a real difference coming into the end of the year in the past 3, 4, 5, 6 months of the level of exposure that you're able to hold? So for those of you watching, if you guys, so Robin, I'm curious, what have you noticed that you're able to in that exposure, and just share what you feel comfortable with sharing, but what do you notice in your exposure that has shifted? Like, where do you notice it the most? And again, you can just share and be as general as you're comfortable with sharing. And I can go in and sharing some things from my end too as well. Capacity is so much stronger. Yeah, that's a big one. So when we say exposure, so if you think about the soul's highest timeline, and that's great that you said that, Robin, because the soul's highest timeline, do you guys like think about the capacity that you have to hold on your soul's highest timeline? A way you guys, like if you even envision yourself on your soul's highest timeline, just imagine the capacity that you feel in your space. When you see, when you see the capacity that you inhabit on your soul's highest timeline, what level of capacity do you see? I'm curious, like how big does it feel? How big and monumental and monstrous and grounded and anchored does your capacity look like and feel like on your soul's highest timeline? I can say the truth more easily in relationship. The future fearing is not overwhelming my capacity. Nice, amazing. Um, so something really big, you guys, when it comes to capacity, and this is something that I've really noticed in my space, is that, and this is how I'll break it down. This is how I'll break it down when it comes to capacity, that I can move into these higher dimensions, this esoteric, ethereal energy in a really pragmatic way. I can relate to this ethereal, higher dimensional energy in a really, really pragmatic way. Um, so when it comes to all this ancestral energy and this higher dimensional ancient sort of emperor energy, I can relate to it in a really practical way, in a really therapeutic way. And my relationship to it has become really pragmatic in a way that's I'm able to ground and earth the energy just so here in the earth. And that's kind of like what I talked about in my Instagram post where God becomes relational. And what that means is your capacity for this higher dimensional energy is becoming really, really of the earth. And so what's happening now in my body and system is I can be in the higher dimensions, but I can be really fucking linear here on earth, right? So think about it. I'm accessing like emperor energy from another time, but I'm like really productive and really linear with what I need to do day in, day out, and structuring and systems. And so it's this really interesting combination where it's like really like grounded foundational masculine energy meets like this emperor oracle, and they're really beginning to find a harmony and a balance inside of me in a way that I hadn't quite experienced until now. And so this is important because the reason why this is happening is because of capacity, right? We have the capacity, but what it also means is that we're ready. It also means that we're ready. Just want to see what Robin said. I actually want more truth in my body and I want to go into the edge. I feel a hunger for it. I love that. I feel a hunger for truth. Yes, you're wanting to go all the way. I think what happens on the soul's highest timeline is you're wanting to turn over every single stone and you're wanting to go all the fucking way. You can talk about in every avenue of your life. You can talk about what do I want for me? What do I want in my career and my dharma? What do I want relationally, sexually? What do I want to feel? You want to go all the way. You're like, there's no part of me that is going to contract and withhold. I am going to move into the full expression and vibration of who I am. Feels like my whole body is holding and moving the energy now. I can feel my body more able to hold the sensation of what it is happening in my life. Yes, it's amazing. Yes. So the soul's highest timeline, you guys, is a full body transmission. What happens is it's now moving from the top of your crown to your toes. So when I mentioned that the higher dimensional energy in my life is becoming really relational, what that really means and how I can ground this in the body, it's where the crown is really meeting the root. And it's where the transmission is becoming fully embodied, right? You know how oftentimes we're trying to do things, but our throat is so fucking blocked and we just can't do anything. And we feel our throat just holding on so tight, which prohibits us and impedes us, you guys, from speaking our godly level truth in whatever capacity of our life when we feel stuck. What happens in the soul's highest timeline is every single energy center and chakra begins to slowly harmonize and spin together. And so now, as what Robin's alluding at in the comments here, I think, is that every chakra and energy center starts to get on the same frequency, right? So now what happens is every chakra and energy center, it starts to sync up to what I call God consciousness, or you could say Christ consciousness. So what happens is every chakra and every energy center in your body starts to sync up into like a holy God, divine, or Christ consciousness. Now the transmission becomes fully embodied. This is the soul's highest timeline, or the God timeline. This is where the full transmission of the divine and God is a head to toe experience. It's not a compartmentalized experience. You know how you relate to this, guys, where again, I talk about like the psychology community and the ungrounded spiritual community, how spirituality became a compartmentalized experience, or that was the association that we had to go into ceremony and find an elevated sensory experience, or the psychological community would refer to this spiritual awakening or spiritual divinity as some compartmentalized fleeting fit of fantasy that can't merge with the earthly realm and reality. Well, the soul's highest timeline is emerging where all the energy centers and chakras begin to move into a harmonized balance of Christ consciousness. Now your capacity to speak merges with your attachment trauma, merges with your capacity to see, merges with your capacity to trust, merges with your capacity to love, merges with your capacity to trust yourself, merging with your sexual energy and your capacity to feel safe in your body. Everything begins to balance and come together. When I say this, guys, do you guys understand this, or does this feel crazy? Let me know in the comment section. When I talk about what I'm talking about, when every energy center and chakra moves into a harmonized balance of Christ consciousness, everything begins to spin together. Does that make sense to people? Or does that just feel like so esoteric and ethereal? Really, just what it means is that every center of your body is becoming totally aligned. This is what happens when the iceberg comes out of the water. When the iceberg comes out of the water, the process of God pulling the iceberg out of the water, revealing everything, is saying, now you can't hide. No part of you can hide. You have to move into a total harmonized unit. So Robin W. says, I can feel my heart so much in the last couple of months. Yes. So I want you guys to imagine that moving to the soul's highest timeline is God is building a jigsaw puzzle in your energetic body. God is building a jigsaw puzzle in your energetic body. That is what the preparation for the soul's highest timeline is. So what happens, and this process might look like one day you're accessing crazy sexual energy. One day you're accessing crazy sexual energy. Then maybe you're accessing tons of fucking anger, this primal rage that you want to fuck shit up and you want to be direct with people. Then the next day you find you're sobbing in this grief and your heart is melting and you want everyone to love each other and you want to be connected. That's God building a jigsaw puzzle in your body. And he's trying to bring it all together. He's trying to bring it all together where every single part of you is welcome. Every single part of you is moving together. Like when energy drops from my stomach into my cock, all of a sudden this crazy sexual primal energy comes into my body, which is an important quotient of it. It's this unbridled life force energy. And you guys, one of the main reasons why people are exhausted on this path is you're trying to learn to be able to hold the amount of primal sexual energy. Sexual energy is life force energy. It's creative energy. So if you find you have a lot of energy, that really is going to mean that your sacral chakra is beginning to fucking explode. Your sacral chakra is beginning to explode. If you're in this manic sort of woo, this energy, it means your sacral chakra is really, really coming online. You're probably purging shame. You're probably purging trauma from your ancestors that have been holding in your womb or your cock or in your sacral chakra that have not allowed the full expression. Because when we move into this godly expression, so much of the motor is the sacral chakra. Will you allow that full motor to come online? And every part of you is trying to come together. And so this is why I say what happens is when every single part of you comes together, you can feel the severing and compartmentalization with other people. Like now, when I'm in the presence of a woman, I can feel so viscerally how connected to her pussy she is. I can, and not in a sexual way, but I can feel so fucking viscerally. And for example, when she's so turned off or when she's so disconnected, I can just feel that viscerally in my body. And what it feels like is you don't know who she is. You don't know who she is. I can't trust her. And so when you move into this type of integration, the soul's highest timeline, you're moving into a cohesive experience of Christ consciousness, And what happens in this portal, like we were in earlier this year, is it revealed chakras that were out of balance. It revealed chakras that were out of balance. It revealed energy centers that were either underactive or overactive. It's trying to harmonize so everything can work together. So what happens in your soul's highest timeline is you really begin to feel a thread between every part of the cellular and energetic body. Now what happens is you become a beacon of Christ consciousness. Now what happens is the divine becomes a very practical experience. It becomes a very practical experience. It's not a severing. It's not a fantasy, a fit of a fantasy fleet or moving into another realm. It's right here. And it's balanced. And it's balanced. And it's going to feel like you can be direct and speak your truth. You're connected to your heart. You have will and you trust yourself. Your sexual energy is exploding. Your psychic experience and revelation of the path is coming. Your trust in the God and divine and your trust in yourself is dropping. Every part of you is harmonizing. This is why what begins to happen from the soul's highest timeline, a couple really important things. One, you begin to move into the vibration of sacred union, meaning you become sacred union or bust. I want to move into a sacred union, meaning that you can feel and vet when other people are not in this embodiment of them, inside of themselves. You can feel people's embodiment, their true embodiment of Christ consciousness. What is their level of embodiment with this Christ consciousness? Another big thing that comes is your God's Dharma, that you're able to move into the God purpose of why you're here. And you're actually ready to tangibly execute and externalize what God's Dharma is for you. So purpose and sacred union, those are two big byproducts of this harmonizing process with Christ consciousness. Now what happens is you will really find that you really start to move out of stagnation, right? So much of the stagnation was different sort of preparatory experiences of harmonizing and balancing different chakras that were out of alignment, different energy centers in your body so they can move into a state of harmony where you're ready to finally take the torch of why you're here. Take the torch of why you're here. This is really going to begin to come through in 2025, that you can take the torch of why you're here. And so what's going to happen is there's going to be, imagine that you have this direct spear level syncing up and dialing in on why you're here. You have this real laser focus sort of pinprick, which is coming from the purity of your vessel. So what had to happen is your vessel had to purify to a certain degree. It had to move enough rubble of density and unconscious fear in the system so your vibration could become authentic enough, and you could build the capacity for exposure enough that you can move into this authentic purity of your God's Dharma, of why you're here. There's no non-essential. You're dialed into the exact thread and chord of what that is. And in dialing to that exact thread and chord, you begin to vibrationally, like a foghorn, begin to call people who are ready to move on to this timeline with you, which is why moving onto the soul's highest timeline is a human being's personal or individual preparatory process to move into the co-creative timeline of sacred union. So really, sacred union is two people that have moved onto their soul's highest timeline, that have created enough alignment with their chakras and energy centers in their body that they were able to find the light of their soul's highest timeline, that preparatory space to move in that vibration. Now really what it is that they're totally in service of their offering. They're totally in service of their offering. Whatever it is that you're here to do, you're totally in service of that offering. This takes a healthy degree of ego to be able to dance with that gift, but you have to be egoless enough to be able to give away that gift to other people. That's why there's a healthy amount of ego that is involved with stepping into service, because we need enough ego to realize that we're magical and powerful and we have something to offer, and to move into that space and then be egoless enough that we engage with that gift and that offering in a place that is truly aligned with God. Meaning we're engaging with this that is truly aligned with God. And the vibration and way that we relate to those gifts is a healthy exchange of the ego and the egoless. And so that's another big part of the soul's highest timeline. It's Dharma, it's sacred union, it's exposure, it's authenticity, and it's alignment. And this portal that came was revealing everything inside of you guys that was underneath the water, that was underneath the water that was holding you back from where spirit wants you to go. And so when we go to the soul's highest timeline, it's kind of the experience of going all the way. It's fully stepping into the inhabitation of where God has been leading us. And so if you think about, so many people are getting called to awakenings. Stepping into the soul's highest timeline is fully heeding the call. It's fully stepping into the call, and there is no part of you that is holding you back from it. You're totally in alignment with the call, and your vessel has been connected and purified vibrationally, frequency-wise, to the vibration of that call. And you step into it. So now you plant 2 feet kind of in the new world or the new earth, right? Perhaps up until this point, there have been aspects of you holding you back, deep layers of unconscious fear that were living underwater, that were getting in the way and not allowing you to move into why you're here. But now you're going all the way. And what I've even noticed in my space, something that's been wild and crazy, is my stomach would balloon. And now that energy is dropping into my sacral chakra, and there's this level of sacral energy that is moving into my space that I have never experienced before. And what it feels like is wild primal activation, crazy just sexual energy, but also wild creativity and expression. And so it's really just preparing us. It's preparing us to move into this space of, are you ready to go all the way? Are you ready to fully heed the call of why you're here? Are you ready to become anointed? Right? And so long the process up until the soul's highest timeline is revealing aspects underneath the iceberg that we're not ready to bring above, right? Aspects underneath the iceberg that we're not ready to bring above. And so what you can think about as you begin to move into the soul's highest timeline is the iceberg's coming out of water. It's like your whole body's being seen. It's like your whole body suddenly being seen. And so if you think about your whole body suddenly being seen, it means every aspect of your life is going to begin to follow suit. If you want to think about like holistic abundance in your life, it's really where every single part of your energetic, physical, emotional vessel begins to sync up with one another on this sort of frequency of Christ consciousness, and it spreads across the board. This is why you get the feeling that your life is going to change in every single way. Because it's not this severing or this compartmentalized embodiment. It's a full holistic embodiment inside of you where every single seam and cell and strand and cord of your body is coming together in alignment. And that's why when you feel into people's spaces, you're like, something's a little off here, right? Something feels a little bit unsafe, right? Something feels a little bit slippery. Something feels a little bit sneaky. There's something about that I don't trust because I know there's so much of a story this person has internally that is not being revealed. And when someone really feels on their soul's highest timeline energetically, it's going to feel like everything's kind of in alignment in them. Everything is kind of moving and working together. And I know Spirit has had me on this crazy journey, particularly since 2020, of coming to this sort of revelation where me personally, I'm really in the biggest way yet, stepping onto the timeline of my higher self in 2025. And I'm going to continue. It's not like 2025 is the only year this will happen. And it's not like things won't come up, but I feel like the real externalized jump into that timeline is happening. And for me, I feel it because my body is beginning to sync up in every which way. And the transmissions feel fully in the body. Like when I release now, it's every single part of me is communicating. Every single part of me is communicating. The throat and the chest and the stomach and the cock, every part is whispering to each other. Every part is communicating. Every part is in tandem. Every part is in union. And it becomes this real thread and this divine cord in your body that is leading you to, okay, you can step into the soul's highest timeline, which really is complete and utter alignment. Complete and utter alignment. Complete and utter union. You're in total alignment and you're in total union. And what happens is God says, you're ready. You're ready to handle the exposure. And so this is a really big, important part, you guys. What happens is what's probably happened to this point is you've gone through this awakening process and you open and you close. You open and you close. Maybe you open, you're like, oh my God, I feel amazing, right? You guys relate to this. You guys connect to this. But then maybe you got to disappear, right? Maybe you're like, oh, okay, I got to get off social media for a month. Or I got to like go to a fucking cabin in the woods for 2 weeks. I got to get away from people. Or you got to hide. Or whatever it might be, right? The soul's highest timeline, that's not going to happen. Or if it does, it's going to be so much more manageable in a way that you've never experienced. Comes back to the exposure piece. That when you do go through a contraction, it's going to show up differently in your space. You won't lose sight of the higher self in your highest timeline. So maybe fear comes up in your body, but it doesn't overtake you as much. It exists in a part of you, right? A part of you, but you see it, you recognize it. And so now what that means is you are ready to handle the level of exposure that comes with the soul's highest self. If you're someone that's really crazy like that, right? Eventually we get to a place where it's kind of like this. And it's more manageable. That's where we're in enough alignment and we're able to hold exposure enough in our body that it doesn't take us out quite as much. and that we actually don't need as many valleys to unearth as much, because there's been so much that has been brought forward within us that the contractions are a little more shallow. The contractions are a little bit more shallow. They're faster, they're shorter, they don't knock us out as much. So the contractions are much shallower. At first, when we're starting out, or when we're trying to make sense of this journey, the contractions are really deep, and they kind of like gobsmack us, and we kind of can't function the same way. But when we get to a point of the soul's highest timeline, they begin to balance out. And so what we talked about, guys, here, the soul's highest timeline, alignment, chakras, and energy centers coming into balance and harmony, abundance. We talked about handling exposure, authenticity, your God purpose, your God's dharma, and sacred union. What else did I want to say? Soul's highest timeline. If you guys have any questions, you guys feel free to put them in the chat section. Any questions on stepping into your soul's highest self and your soul's highest timeline? Also, the soul's highest timeline is so much of it is being able to hold the level of energy that we're going to need to be able to do what we need to do, right? So when you think about stepping in your soul's highest timeline, we're accessing, cultivating, and harvesting a primal ancient level energy in our body that we're able to hold. And so really what's going to come through, and this has been coming through in my space, is kind of these glimpses into the level of ferocity and energetic volume that is going to be required inside of you to cultivate what you want and create what you want and do what you want to do in this timeline that's coming through. The full energetic ferocity, capacity, and volume that is going to be needed for you to do what you need to do and step into is going to begin to come forward in this timeline. What I will also say, and this is really important, and I haven't really touched on this yet, but the soul's highest timeline, what you're going to notice is a level of joy. A level of joy that is probably going to be unprecedented. A level of freedom, liberation, joy, and levity. Things are going to start to feel really light. And so again, you guys know this portal that we went through, September, October, November. Think about how dense that was. Think about how heavy it felt. For those of you who experienced that, like how brutally heavy and dense that was. And now what should be happening is you should be getting glimpses of the liberation, freedom, joy, ascension, and levity that is coming on the inverse side of it. This month, December, I've really been getting glimpses, and they've been bigger than glimpses, prolonged periods of it, prolonged periods of that levity that has been coming through. And so the soul's highest timeline, you want to think about, you're able to hold a level of freedom, right? You're able to hold a level of freedom and authenticity in yourself. You're able to hold a level of light, levity, and joy. So much of being able to hold the highest self's timeline is being able to hold joy. Can you hold joy, pleasure, desire, ecstasy in your body? Can you hold these pieces in your body? Can you be in this level of radiance in your system? And so one thing I notice when my higher self's becoming stronger, I just want to be funny. I want to make jokes. I want to be comical. I want to laugh. So joy is a really, really strong thread and cord that is really going to come through stronger and stronger. And really what it is, guys, is that you're trying to learn to hold a level of exposure and expression in your system that no one in your lineage has been able to hold before. You're trying to hold a level of expression and exposure that no one in your entire fucking lineage has been able to hold until you. And that means that you can hold a level of joy and radiance and freedom in your space that no one has been able to hold. And so also, what really happens in this is you really feel the ancestral threads and cords, and the attachment cords goes away. All those tethers, ties, and cords to your ancestors start to go away. And you start to be able to move into your full liberation, freedom, and expression without feeling tied down, without feeling those hinges, tethers, and cords, and attachment kind of wirings to your ancestors, to your family of origin and your ancestors of origin. In this whole highest timeline, it's going to be a real separation from the family of origin and your ancestors of origin. This level of freedom that you can now hold in your system. Maybe you come from a lineage where, everyone was really repressed. People were really internalized. People were really passive. And now you're moving into this level of expression that can be seen in your system in a way that feels foreign. In a way, it might even feel foreign for you, but for sure it feels foreign for your ancestors, for people in your family line, that you're moving into this opening in your vessel and system and this offering inside of you, totally baked and basked in God, that is entirely foreign for your lineage. And you feel yourself being able to hold it. And you get the message from God that says, you're fucking ready. I've been getting this message continually, like, yep, it's time. It's time. This is it. It's go time. It doesn't mean, 2025 is just, everything, but it means it's like, okay, like we're really stepping into it. We're really stepping into it. 2020, we're really stepping into it in every way, elevating in every which way, like that. And so that message is clear. Robin W says it feels like that. The full spectrum is on the menu and never knowing what is coming. Yeah, because your full body's engaged. You come into a space where everything's engaged, and the best way to describe it is that what happens is God is playing your body like a jigsaw puzzle, but you trust. You trust that God is perfectly placing every single piece. God is playing your body like a jigsaw puzzle, and you understand that he or she knows how to place every single puzzle piece. That's what happens. And you feel this tapestry, this puzzle being created by God's unique design for you and the purpose of why you're here. Going all the way is being willing to die for authenticity, to be the authentic creator. Yep. The density I'm moving through is the brakes that hold back the authenticity. Yep. That's exactly it. So Robin W says, the density I'm moving through is the brakes that hold back the authenticity. That's it right there in a sentence. That it's the parking brake on your wildest authenticity and the expression of who you uniquely are that is trying to come forward. The density that is coming up are the strands, tethers, holds, and parking brakes that are not allowing that to become fully realized and externalized. Any more questions, guys, on the soul's highest timeline as we wrap things up here? If you guys have any questions on stepping into the soul's highest timeline, what's holding you back from stepping into this highest timeline, anything at all when it comes to the vibration and frequency of the soul's highest timeline, feel free to put them in the comment section, you guys. Would love to hear what's alive in your guys' space. So feel free to drop those in, you guys. Any questions, guys? Feel free to put them in the comments section. If not, we are going to wrap this baby up for the second to last YouTube Live of 2024. Again, you guys, just to note, for those of you here, Friday, December 20th, 12 p.m. Pacific Standard Time will be the final YouTube Live until the new year. Monday, January 6th, we will be picking things back up. We will be taking the last week of December and the first week of January off. I'll still be releasing a few YouTube videos and some static content like that, but no more lives until January 6th after Friday. So any questions, going once, going twice, guys, on stepping into the soul's highest timeline? That's a shitty latte. That's a shitty latte. But what are we going to do, guys? Gotta feed the veins with that caffeine. All right, everyone. I'm going to head out of here. Sending love to everyone. Wishing you guys a great week. Hope you guys got benefit from this. If you resonate to this, please give it a like. Send it to a friend who might resonate with this content or be going through any of what I talked about here. And as always, if you guys haven't already, be wildly appreciated. And I'd be forever grateful if you guys subscribe to my channel. Lots more exciting stuff that is going to be coming on my YouTube channel here as we move toward the end of 2024. Sending love to everyone. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, and good night. And we'll see you guys on Friday. Peace out, everyone.